Welcome back to the Friday Night 360 AZ preview show alongside Haley Stasiak. I'm Jordan Ham. I've had a couple of really good guests in Jason Mons.
Looking at this rivalry game.
And Jack Miller. Big game, Chaparral Saguaro. This Friday, we're going to have Bruce Cooper here in a second. He's going to give some context to the rivalry and everything else along the high school landscape as well. He'll be joining us here in just a minute. But let's jump into my high school football question that has very little to do with high school football. This week's question was, what would be your featured menu item at your imaginary high school snack bar? Punny names are, of course, encouraged. You want to give yours first?
So mine would be Chicago dogs. I'm not going to go like out there with this because I'm a very traditional, stick to it, snack bar, concession stand kind of food. You always are going to have hot dogs, but specifically Chicago dogs. And mine wouldn't just be any Chicago dog. It would be a Portillo's Chicago dog because my school would be bougie like that. And I'm a Midwest girl. I grew up 45 minutes away from the city of Chicago. So, I mean.
The accent slips every now and then. So I haven't pointed it out yet, but yeah, that's not surprising at all.
Love a Chicago dog.
Couple of submissions. We actually had two from Nick Frank. He's a sports anchor in Little Rock. He went to high school in North Dakota, and his mascot was the Squirrels. So the Squirrels Donuts.
And the shape of the squirrels, like Krispy Kreme's does sometimes with their holiday with the pumpkin or the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
There we go.
The Spartan Swordfish was his other submission. Sarah Cazell, you know her. She is doing a little bit of everything here in the Valley on Arizona Prep Spotlight, as the in-game host for the U of A football team. She did fake cheese nachos.
Fake cheese nachos?
Yeah, just like the regular nachos you get at a snack bar, where it's like the kind of press the cheese out and you're not sure where it came from, and it probably came out of a Ziploc. And
you know what would be good that I'd also add is Velveeta cheese nachos.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
No, she is a cheese savant, so that also is not very surprising.
I could see Sarah getting creative with the cheese too.
Yeah. Add some jalapenos. For me, I think when I'm watching a game, I like having kind of like the finger foods, like it's easy to pick up, easy to manage. I'm watching something. I don't need stuff getting all over the place. So like street
you wouldn't like
tacos.
My Chicago dogs.
I'd make do.
Makes it hard.
I'd overcome because I'm selfless like
Foodie.
that. So like street tacos, I do like some brisket street tacos. Get some cheese, some onion in there, or like sliders. Get some.
That's easy.
Get some cheeseburger sliders, some like fried chicken sliders. I'm a big fan of that.
I could go like a full spread here. Like when you say finger food, the first thing that came into mind was those little sausage things, and you wrap them in bacon with brown sugar. Mm-hmm. Huge thing with my family with tailgates, Notre Dame tailgates, and just like holidays as appetizers. Oh, so good.
I have a feeling that my bleachers would have like tables attached to them.
Like the Dodger Stadium has.
Yeah, just make it work. So that is this week's question. This past week's question. For this week's question, because it's Chaparral Saguaro, and I know we're going to have some big rivalry games coming up in the upcoming weekends, my question is, make up your imaginary school's rival. And what makes them good? What makes them a rival?
Makes them a rival?
Yeah.
So
it's gonna. You're the secretariats.
Yes.
So, who would your rival be? What makes them a good rival? What sort of rivalry things would ensue? What kind of pranking would happen? I feel like with this particular question, we didn't get as good of a response. Full disclosure, we didn't get as good of a response. You have your good weeks, you have your bad weeks. And I think it's because I limited your guys' creativity. Because we have some really creative media friends, some friends within the biz, and they really came to shine the first couple of ones. This one was a little more straight up. So
I would have liked to hear Kay Fitz's response to this one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my high school football question.
Before we bring Coop on, let's talk about where we're going this week. I'm going out to Brophy Mesa Mountain View. Really excited to see Brophy in person. I've seen Mesa Mountain View the past couple seasons that I've been covering high school football, so getting back out there and seeing Brophy and John Kitna, haven't got to see them much this year. So looking forward to that, where you're going to.
And that plays off of, going to the Mountain Point Hamilton game when we were touching on that earlier in the show. Another new coach, seeing the identity of this new team. Brophy has always been kind of the Stanford-esque style, where they've got those big running backs, those big offensive linemen. Usually they're under center. Would love to see the new wrinkles that a former NFL quarterback brings into that. I'll be at Chaparral and Saguaro. I'm really excited. This is my first time seeing Saguaro this year. Saw them plenty in the preseason, but looking forward to seeing them, put the pads on and
get the
see
action going.
Yeah, Will Schaefer's a guy that has jumped out to me. Team's leading tackler. Is big in the reception game as well. First time I'll see Tyler Beverett in game action, the quarterback. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And then just seeing, how Chaparral responds, with their defense. We talked to Coach Mons about some of the options he has on offense. I think that this Chaparral defense has really, stepped up nicely and made some big plays when they need to. But when you have a big offensive line like Saguaro, it's going to be interesting.
Definitely.
So with that, we are going to bring in the one and only Bruce Cooper over at Channel 12. Bruce, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
So we're about halfway through the season. Can't believe that it's already at the halfway point. But which team has impressed you the most and jumped out to you the most in this early high school football season?
Wow, that's a really good question. But you know what? I'm just going to have to say the Arcadia Titans, just based on what I saw from them last year. I mean, you guys know the numbers. I mean, they're 0-10. And the disparity in the scores. I mean, they were outscored, 472 to 29? I mean, and to see what Kerry Taylor has done so far, I mean, guys, how did he do this? I talked to him during the summer, and he was so optimistic, and I didn't want to burst his bubble, And, I'm like, God, dude, I'm really happy for you. You got this head coaching gig and everything, but, man, you don't know what you got yourself into. And, man, I tell you what, this guy has been absolutely impressive. I mean, look, they're dropping 40 points a game just about. I mean, it's great to see the enthusiasm over at that program. It's great to see the fan base really get behind them now, because I'm going to tell you, it was really terrible last year. I can tell you how terrible it was. But so that's been a major, major surprise to me, to be honest with you. I just didn't anticipate that. And here they are, I guess, looking to go, 5-0 this weekend at Shadow Mountain. So that's probably the biggest surprise for me, because I just didn't see that coming.
Coop, you have seen it all with Arizona high school sports, seen it all with Arizona sports, period. But with high school sports, what is it that has stood out most to you here in 2018 that you've seen talent-wise?
Oh, talent-wise, wow. Probably the obvious. I mean, Jake Smith is just a touchdown machine over there at Notre Dame Prep. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. I think he's averaging maybe 5-6 touchdowns a game, and he does it in every way, shape, or form. Whether it's running the ball, whether it's catching the ball. I think last week he returned a kickoff 90-plus yards for a touchdown. It's no small surprise to see why he was so highly coveted. I know Arizona fans wished he would have been able to stay in the Valley, but he's, as you guys know, committed to the Texas Longhorns there. So he's just been a stud to watch each and every Friday night. And I know you guys have talked about the Chaparrals, and the Saguaros. I mean, a big game this week. I mean, that on both sides of the ball, of course, Saguaro's just loaded with D1 talent. But I mean, we've got probably 25 players between the two teams that are D1 prospects. So hey, pick any one of those. I mean, they'll stand out as well. But for me, it's been Mr. Jake Smith over at Notre Dame Prep.
Yeah, Jake's been putting up video game numbers this year, and I think that's a bit of an understatement. A lot's been made this offseason and this early season about transfers and their prevalence in high school football and the rules associated with them. Just what's your viewpoint on transfers in high school sports?
Well, for me, I grew up in an era in which you played in your own school boundaries, and that's just not even the landscape that exists today. And the thing that's so troubling to me is that it just seems like parents get so involved in what's taking place. They're trying to dictate where their kids go to enhance a scholarship opportunity, and I think sometimes they could be a little misguided. Now, I don't really want to point any fingers or say anything negative about anyone because it's certainly their choice. But without mentioning names, there was a tight end at Pinnacle, and we know who I'm talking about. I mean, look, this guy was on the receiving end of so many Spencer Rattler passes. And he moves over to Saguaro now, and he has to sit out 5 games. Look, Spencer Rattler is a quarterback that, is going to get eyes every Friday night. You're going to get visibility. You're going to get exposure there. But, for whatever reason, and look, we know Saguaro's been a pipeline to colleges with recruits. I just don't think that there was a need to leave to enhance a scholarship opportunity. But those are the things that takes place. I know the AIA has tried several different ways in trying to slow down the transfers and things like that. I hate to see kids that get penalized. Again, I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a player who left to go to a certain school where his coach was already there, and now that's been deemed as a recruitment, and so now he's lost out for the entire year. So I hate to see kids get penalized and they don't get to live out their dreams of playing high school ball and things like that. It's just really sad to see. I wish we could just go back to the old school ways when I was coming up. Whatever boundary that you were in, that's the school that you went to, no exception. So, but again, it's a totally different landscape. I just think there's just way too much parental involvement in these things, and I think we see a lot of the kids get hurt by it, and it just is what it is.
12 News sports anchor Bruce Cooper on the phone with us. Coop, game of the week this week, that rivalry between Chaparrals at Saguaro, as you mentioned. You were around when this rivalry was in its prime. Would you say that this is one of the best sports rivalries in the Valley?
Oh, look, absolutely so. I mean, look, Ron Estabrook, I remember he was a head coach over there at Chaparral. I mean, they were putting out D1 athletes, and then over at Saguaro, I mean, it was the same thing. I mean, look, you had NFL caliber players going at it in these games, and so it was definitely one of the best heated rivalries around. I mean, you could go back and look at the Brophies and St. Mary's, the Peoria and Cactuses. I mean, there's a lot of great rivalries out there, but this one certainly is right up there amongst them, and I'm just glad to see that it's coming back around, because I hate to see these rivalries dissolve because of maybe some division alignments and things like that. But I think it's been a couple of years since we've seen Chaparral and Saguaro go at it, and I know Saguaro's had its way the last few years before the rivalry went away. But look, this is a loaded and stacked game. I mean, you got D1 prospects on both sides of the ball. And so, look, it is our game of the week. It's everyone's game of the week. I'm anxious to see the outcome.
What is your favorite memory from back in the day with this game?
Oh,
lots of good moments, I'm sure. Tough one.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I guess there was a time when Chaparral was just the king of the hill, and Ron Estabrook had his team rolling. I mean, they had I can't remember the young man's name that went to Notre Dame and then eventually Devontae Neal.
Devontae Neal, yep.
Yeah.
I know that name.
And and I will tell you what, that season, that rivalry at that time was really, really special. I mean, I remember being on the sideline and just seeing the passion and the excitement that just exuded from that sideline of Chaparral during that game. It just stood out to me. The fan base just going crazy. Everyone's painted up. I mean, for whatever reason, the time when the Devontae Neal and then the guy, what was the quarterback? I think he went to Texas. I'm losing his name as well.
Connor Brewer.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you guys got memory.
Jordan's got it.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. That was that time period there really stands out to me. That has been a really special time to watch the games during this rivalry.
So, what's your prediction for this game on Friday night?
Well, wow.
Hard-hitting questions today, Coop.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Chaparral, I think they have the advantage at their quarterback position with Jack Miller there. But I mean, when you look at what he has to see across the field at that defense, I mean, look, that secondary back there, led by Keely Ringo and Polk and Shivers. I mean, that's probably you won't find a secondary in this state better than that one. And I just think that at the end of the day, that defense is going to be too swarming. And I know that Darvon Hubbard's an outstanding running back. Tommy Christakis is an outstanding receiver. But I just think that there's just too much on the Saguaro side of the field defensively. So I'm going to look for Saguaro to win this one, probably 28-14.
Good stuff, Coop. As always, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the sidelines.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
12 News sports anchor Bruce Cooper there. Been around Valley sports since 1986. He grew up here. Knows it all. He is just an encyclopedia of knowledge. Thought it was interesting with him discussing how Arcadia has surprised him early this year. I know that's not a team we've touched on a lot this season. They're coming up into a good part of their schedule, so I'm sure we'll be talking about them quite a bit more.
They'll actually be playing Saguaro next week.
So good game there coming up too. I mean, Saguaro's coming. A lot of these teams are coming into the good meaty parts of their schedules.
Totally. Yeah, as you get to kind of the conference play, you'll see kind of where those stronger conferences or divisions are. You think about 5A Santan. I know we've talked about it a couple of just top to bottom, just really, really strong. And obviously that 6A Premier division where it's a lot of the Chandler schools and now Brophy, who's on a nice little upswing as well. So it's going to be really, really fun the rest of September and October as we approach playoffs. And talking about, again, this Saguaro rivalry, Jordan's going to be out there on Friday night, and 12 News will be out there as well, I'm sure. So you'll see Coop. This rivalry is reigniting. Coop was around for its prime, as we talked about with him, and had a tough time recalling those names. But you were on it. You knew exactly who he was talking about. It's cool to see how this is coming back and how people saw it. I mean, these kids that are playing this game don't have the same kind of knowledge of what this was as the coaches and the media members that have been around for as long as they have. And I'm curious to see, when I'm on that sideline, who's going to pop up that's a former player. I'm sure there's a few that we have in our heads. Yeah, and just the ones that I'm not even going to think about and say, oh my gosh, yeah, you played in this rivalry, of course. So I have a feeling it's going to be a really busy sideline on both sides. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be going out to Brophy at Mesa Mountain View. Be sure to check out Eric's zone read on sports360az.com. You can find this show on demand, as well as our AZ Audible segment on demand. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.